Hi everybody, Adam Steele here, and today, this is the brand new iD24 from Audient. Let's do a little demo, and then let's check it out.
A groan, a tedium escapes me, startling the fearful. Is this a test? It has to be, otherwise I can't go on. Draining patience, strained vitality, this paranoid, paralyzed vampire acts a little low. But I'm still right here, giving blood, keeping faith, and I'm still right here. And I'm still right here, giving blood, keeping faith, and I'm still right here. If there were no rewards to reap, no loving memories to see me through this tedious path I've chosen here, I certainly would have walked away by
So this is new from Audient, and this is kind of the missing link between the iD14 and the iD44. And so this has lots of features built in. It's technically still a 2-channel interface in terms of 2 preamps, but now it has optical in, optical out. So it's got an extra 8 channels in and out there. It's got 4 analog outputs as well. It's also got balanced sends and returns on the 2 preamps, much like its bigger brother, the iD44. It's also entirely USB-C powered, unlike some of the older iD range. The iD44, of course, still uses a 12 volt because it's huge, but this thing is the biggest interface now that Audient make that can handle running entirely off a USB-C cable, which you can use a USB-C to USB-A cable if that's all your computer supports, as long as it can provide enough power. That will work absolutely fine. PC, Windows, Mac, it works on pretty much everything. Even works on Linux, although some of the kind of special features like the ID mixer aren't available on Linux. The interface itself will still pull its weight. Now, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the DI on these is so super clean that I used it on the bass and all the guitars on that demo. I also used the inserts for vocals, but I'll talk about that shortly. This is the reason why I use the DIs on this. They are super clean, and this is Tonex from Amplitude, which is a separate video that's coming out this week, but that got announced today as well, so that's going to come in a couple of days. And with my guitar volume on full, we get that massive but the same guitar sound. I turn my guitar volume up to 1.5 and I get that. almost clean thing, and that's from a relatively high gain Marshall, a really high gain diesel, and an extremely high gain Mesa dual rectifier profile, all running at once. So there's a couple of super high gain amps, and what you'll see with a lot of guitarists is that they will have one sound and roll back their volume. And we've got to the point now where the DI is so high quality on these things that you can genuinely do that. I can go to like 1 or 2 in my volume pot and go, and then go all the way to 10. And the only reason I'm getting any buzzing is because I'm under these really bright studio lights that are causing a little bit of interference. Otherwise, it's been dead quiet. So you'll have seen in the demo video that I used a big rack of 500 series stuff underneath the iD24, and that was all running into the return on the insert of the first channel. Works the same on the second channel, where I had a really nice Stam Audio 1073 tube preamp into some nice EQs, a de-esser, an LA3A compressor, all going essentially straight to the converters in the iD24, no extra preamp required. Now, in my personal opinion, the line preamps on the iD series are so clean that it doesn't matter if you do run through them, but if you're really looking for that last 0.1% of quality, you can not use the line preamp here if you've already got really good preamps involved. Now, there are features on the front here which we're going to talk about, but if you go through the converters only, none of those controls will work because they're not in the circuit anymore. It's entirely up to you, but that's what I did. I used the Stam U87, their SA87i, which was going through there, like I said, 1073 tube preamp, and germanium EQ and all that kind of stuff. And so I had to do very little processing on the vocals in the box. Talking of the box, I'm running the iD24 on a modern MacBook, which is running macOS 13.1, the latest at the time of making this video. Works absolutely flawlessly for anyone who's been worried about whether the iD series works with the latest Mac operating system. I'm still not sure, again, at time of making this video, whether that's officially supported by Audient, just because, you know, companies have to make sure things work right. But for me, that's been working absolutely fine. If you do want to use the preamps on here, which are incredibly clean, they of course have phantom power, but on individual switches, they also have a -10 dB pad. So if you're using a guitar amp that's absolutely blasting, or using a DI from something like a bass where even on minimum gain, it's clipping the input, you can put a pad on that will work. And then there is a high pass filter if you're getting rumble that will sort that out. The pad and the high pass filter are not on the iD14, those are premium features that come on the 24, much like the balanced inserts. Now, let's do a little test that will test the preamps out. You'll have seen me do this on the iD series before, the SM7B Test, where we see just how clean the gain is, and as an added bonus, I'm then, once I've done that, going to use the insert points to insert a hardware 1176 into the chain after the Audient preamp, because that to me is 3/4 of a great vocal chain. Really good mic, really good clean preamp, really good 1176 style limiter, and then it's just extra candy on top. So if I can have most of that done before it even hits the computer, that's less processing power for plugins, it's more authentic, it's arguably better if we're really getting into kind of nitpicking using real hardware. So let's check that out now. Alright, so this is the SM7B test. You can see I'm talking at kind of a normal volume, if not a little bit less. And the gain is on full on the interface, and it's almost maxing out. It's almost kind of clipping the output, which means, because I'm a couple of inches away from this and I'm not really speaking super loud, sounds great. Now, and that's the noise floor, pretty much non-existent. The only noise you should be able to hear is the fans that are in the lights and the computer fan in the streaming PC over there. Those to me are quite audible over any sort of preamp hiss that you might think of. Now, let's get the 1176 patched in. Interestingly, when I plug the send in from the preamp, that goes to the 1176, and I can see the meters going crazy over there, but it's also passing the clean preamp through to the converters. So if you needed to kind of split the signal and process something parallel, you could get really clever with this. So what I'm going to do now is put the return for the 76 in, and now, oh, that's big and thick and loud. But that's with the nice clean Audient preamp going into a Revision D 1176 in the rack back there. So you could conceivably get yourself like a nice vocal mic, use the inbuilt preamps, which are not poor quality, which a lot of people, think about, oh, it's inbuilt, it must be better to get external. Depends what you're after. And then run that into something like an 1176, a de-esser, an optical compressor, whatever it is that you want. And that gives me that sound. If I'm getting really clever now, like I said, I could unplug the return, and then I'm back to where I was before, put the return into channel 2's converter. And now if I bring up a second channel on the MacBook here, and now that's on analog 2. Oh, that's a significant volume jump. I'm going to just turn that down. But that is now parallel compressing with the 1176 is coming back in on channel 2, and the clean Audient preamp is on channel 1. So I'm getting the best of both worlds. You can do some really clever stuff with this. And you can go one further because it's got 4 outputs on the iD24. If you set output 3 and 4 to be DAW through, so not using the mixer app, I could reamp things here and get clever with splitting and do all sorts of clever analog processing, and then the converters will then bring that in as necessary. Speaking of the extra outputs, you can use output 3 and 4. They're all balanced, all 4 of them, and they've got these ridiculous DAC specs and ADC specs compared to interfaces of 5-10 years ago. I keep getting asked by people, oh, what converters should I buy? And like, these are perfectly good because we're in 2023. We've got to the point where tech has reached a plateau that these are absolutely incredible. And, unless you're really, 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 really looking for that super detailed thing, in which case you need the best mics, the best rooms, the best preamps, the best treated sound, the best everything, it's not going to make any difference. These are amazing. And so yeah, output 3 and 4, I could have a set of NS10s connected to them and use one of the buttons on the front to change to alternate speakers. You can use the function buttons here to do things like that. So if I had Alt 3 and 4, I could hit that and off you go. Alternatively, the way that I'd probably use it the most would be something like a reamping situation. I would use, say, output 3 maybe, going to one of my reamp boxes, which then converts it to a guitar signal, run it through an amp and a cab, and then back into the 2 microphone preamp inputs there. And that's me done in that kind of way. If I'm using something like a 414 or something that needs 48 volts, turn that on. If I've got too much low end, turn those on too. And off you go. It's also got a Wordclock output because it's got separate out and in optical. That's there so that if you were to run one thing for your outputs and another thing for your inputs, you can keep them all synchronized with Wordclock. It's pretty much a necessary feature when you start getting into more complex digital setups. It wasn't needed on the iD14 because the only digital option was an input, which would then just be the master clock. In this case, Wordclock from this being the master means that everything can be kept together and kept in time. It's got the dual headphone outputs on the bottom. They're not 2 separate headphone amps, but it's got the big and the small sockets, so you can use them at the same time. If you've forgotten your adapter, which I do a lot, then you've got that there too. And we heard the DI at the start. With the optical, you can really start to get clever though. With the optical, you can then have 10 channels, including these 2 preamps, so you can start to record a medium to large drum kit setup. Alternatively, you can do what I did on the previous video for the SP8, where you could hook an SP8 up to this, and you could use it so that you've got 8 outputs from something like an SP8, and then 8 separate individual inputs. And I was mixing through Outboard hardware doing that. So I had things like diode compressors and Outboard saturators and all that kind of stuff to really kind of up the mixing game. And just using a couple of optical cables connected to here, you could do that and have 4 stereo banks of Outboard gear connected without even touching the outputs and inputs on the iD24. So I could then keep these free for tracking, keep output 3 and 4 for monitors, and output 1 and 2 for my mains, and still have all that analog gear at my fingertips. At this point, the iD24 is a real big boy thing for if you need like 16 optical inputs and optical outputs and 4 of these really high quality preamps. The 24 is probably going to be appropriate for a lot more people. The iD14 is the version that doesn't have the fancy stuff if you don't need that, and the iD4 is the version that you can stick in your bag that's tiny, that's really good for like a 1 microphone setup, and keeps the quality without any of those extra features depending on how much you need and how much you would like to pay. It's also worth mentioning that the whole Q-Mix thing in the iD software, there's 2 separate Q-Mixes you can do in here. And so what you can do with that is you could have a Q-Mix that is entirely for the headphones, so that if you've got an artist working on headphones in the next room and they say, oh, can I have more microphone, less of this, more of that, you can do that independent of your DAW. Q-Mix B is something maybe you could send out of 3 and 4, or the other way around, so that I could have a separate mix going out there if I wanted to have something really clever going to a reamp system using the 0 latency Q-Mix system. That's all there for me. There's just so many ways that this little thing can be super versatile, and I'm going to take this to anything that I'm recording that's out of the studio now. I think I was using the iD4 for that kind of thing, but I ended up giving that to an artist. I was using the iD14, I gave that to Andy Sizek from Monuments because the interface that he was using before, it was a massive level up. The iD44, because it needs the 12 volts, I'm going to use that for more serious setups. You know, and I've got the Evo 16 that is my main mix setup at home. I've got the ASP880 here in my Studio A rack. You know, but there's something for everybody, and this is going to be my portable to-go solution. Because it's powered off USB-C, I can take this, take my MacBook, which has been hiding back here the whole time, by the way, and that's it. And I can run the 24 off the MacBook, and for several hours of recording, I could be in the middle of a field. So there you go, the iD24. I know a lot of people have been saying the iD22 was kind of a little bit, getting on a little bit and needed replacing. Well, there it is. So thanks everybody for watching. This has been a product demonstration from me, and the links, if you want to go and get one, are going to be down in the description. Affiliate links, of course. Thank you everybody for watching. If you found this useful, then do let me know. If there's anything you would like to see that I didn't cover, then again, give me a shout. One thing that I will definitely be doing in future is trying to compare the interfaces per dollar or per pound and see which one is right for different people. But for now, this is the iD24. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.